And so we return again to the basic question, why? Why does the establishment publicly condemn but privately support the anti-establishment movement? Former communist Jerry Kirk answers, the idea is to create a situation where the people are so frightened of the violence all around them that they will throw their hands up in the air and demand, federal government, do something. And the only choice open will be martial law. The communists, black militants, and revolutionaries will never succeed in overthrowing the government of the United States. But unless they are stopped, they will scare the American people into accepting socialism from Washington and statist rule by the insiders of the establishment. This is what it is really all about.
But it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 12. Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to our venerable apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. All right, so Brother Aharon coming back at you with another lesson. Lord willing to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right, and I have an article here I want to go into stemming from what happened on a couple of days ago in regards to the so-called Charlie Kirk unaliving. Okay, and I say so-called because you know me, conspiracy theorists, right? There's a lot of things that of course you have to question, right? Being in the day and age that we're living in with advancements of technology, with AI, going further back, even prior to, at least when I noticed it, 2019, 2018, 2017, around there, where we started to see technology like deepfake, right? Even during the time when Obama was president. All right, they'll put Vladimir Putin, and then they'll put Obama, and then they'll make it seem like they'll put Obama's face or Obama's voice upon a certain person, and then it's like, oh shit, like it makes it look like it's the actual person saying or behaving and looking like that, but it's actually just computer generated graphics. All right, so computer generated images, as they say, CGI. So back then we were like, damn, like this technology is crazy. What could they possibly do with it? And then you fast forward to 2020 when you have this whole CV situation, all right, which pretty much shifted everything, right? Shifted the minds of people. This is 5 years ago. Okay, this is 5 years ago. So everyone has aged 5 more years, all right, compared to if you were 50, you're 55. If you were 45, you're 50, right? If you were 55, you're 60, right? So 5 years changes a lot. And that's the difference between being a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old, all right? Being a difference between a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, right? So 5 years is a huge difference. It's half a decade. So just putting all these things together, I was just like, yo, this is very spiritual on a level that hasn't been seen in quite some time. Okay, you put all the pieces together, it happens the very day before so-called 9/11. All right, so 9/10, and most people didn't even really talk too much about 9/11 on the day of 9/11. Most people were all talking about Charlie Kirk's unaliving because they saw it. And you go a couple of weeks ago where they had that so-called FF that happened at the Annunciation Church out in Minneapolis. We said it that, yo, in order for their agenda and their plans and their witchcraft to work, these kinds of events are going to happen more frequently, but they're going to take a certain narrative, right? Because now it's going to be more, not only are they going to demonize guns and people who own guns, but also they're going to start demonizing. They're going to start demonizing specific groups of people. They're going to start categorizing people based on online speech, based on whatever you may support, right? But also it's also going to create a divide, a division that will be plausible, all right, in this generation. Okay, because when you go 9/11, which was 24 years ago, and you fast forward 24 years later into the future, what happened with the Charlie Kirk situation, I look at it as the modern day 9/11. Okay, and I'll go a little bit more into it, but this is like the modern day 9/11, basically, right? It's a traumatizing situation that everyone sees, right? Just like 9/11, and most people will never forget. Like, most people will be like, I remember what I was doing when I heard that. It was the shot that was heard around the world, so to speak, right? This is even like on a whole nother level, crazier than what happened with DJ Trump, with his ear getting so-called hit, right? People actually saw somebody get so-called unalived, like in their face. They saw the neck get hit, they saw the body jump, they saw the blood splatter, they saw people bugging out, crazy, chaotic scene. Oh my God, Charlie Kirk. And it's crazy because, and like I was saying, I took a couple of days to think about this, is because that guy, Charlie Kirk, wasn't really a mainstream person, right? He wasn't like mainstream. He was more of somebody who was in like I said, the generation, the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha people, the modern day youth, so to speak, because that's the college students. Those are the ones he was debating for the most part. You go to these college campuses, like University of Utah, for example, and go do these debates, So that generation, that age group, people who are, younger than 35, that kind of age group, those are the ones who are, some of them did witness 9/11, others didn't. Some came after that, some came right before that, some came during that time. But for the most part, that generation, this is their 9/11. This is their trauma-based incident, right? And through that, they can spawn a whole lot of different changes. Like, for example, the digitalization of the Patriot Act, right? The Patriot Act came after 9/11, right? Which was basically war on terror, right? So this is going to be the new digital version of the Patriot Act, revised version of it, which is not going to be just war on terror. It's going to be war on crime, war on, certain things that you may say online, right? So now, and I'm getting a couple of presets and then we're going to jump into this article. But so now you have a system where you have the division happening, right? Because now as soon as it happened, they blame, it's the left that did this. They have a problem with somebody expressing his opinions, and and it was a TG. TG people are, it's just a whole bunch of bullshit they come up with, But again, this is to incite that anger, that ire, that frustration, and that's what you're seeing online. People doing videos, cursing people out, saying you guys are crazy. Oh, it's on. You the liberals. It's the Dems that did this. It's the liberals that did this, right? This asshat Alex Jones, he was doing the same thing, talking shit, saying, oh, it's the Democrats that did this. It's all they want to do is sow the concept of fear, anger, and division. That's what this is all about, okay? And through that, the authorities can come in and enact martial law, because how much more of this can we take? And like I said in my previous video, going into the Minneapolis situation, it's not going to end here, okay? And I told you, I said in the video, the more it happens, the more gruesome it gets, because they need to get you emotionally charged, right? In order for this to work, this is all trauma-based mind control, all right? Trauma-based mind control, all right? And then, of course, I think a day or two before that, you had this whole story that's not even sticking, right? Because they had to come up with something else that's even more gruesome, which was this so-called Ukrainian chick that got so-called stabbed in her neck, right? Another one with a neck, on the bus somewhere. It's just a whole bunch of CGI bullshit that they're just pushing at this point. All right, but again, you're gonna see a whole lot more of it, and it's gonna get more and more ridiculous. It's gonna get a lot more annoying. All right, they're gonna be coming up with all kinds of different draconian measures to make sense out of all of this in order to protect people, keep you safe. All right, keep our community safe. So this situation has a lot of tentacles in it, man. All right, and it doesn't smell right. Okay, just like all these other FFs that happen. All right, when you trace it down, eventually you come up to the point where you're like, oh, this is another made-up thing that they came up with, But it's not about if it's real or not. It's about the reaction that comes out of it. All right, people say, oh, but you didn't see people get shot? Yeah, cool. It's the reaction. The true action is in the reaction. All right, well, let's read this real quick. It says, turning point. How Charlie Kirk's unaliving is reshaping both left and right. Okay, so they get the people in gear for that race war, that civil war that ends up becoming a state where martial law will be the only solution. Okay, it says America is living through a moment that feels like history has split in two. The assassination of Charlie Kirk was not just the tragic silencing of one of the most dynamic conservative voices of our generation. It was also a mirror held up to our culture. That what that mirror revealed was ugly, right? And this is what our Lord said. All right, that because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold, right? That's in Matthew 24. Let's get that real quick. Matthew chapter 24, verse 12, it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And that's what you're seeing, right? There was a time where something like this will galvanize the people and everybody will come together. But now we're in a state where things like this happens and it creates more of a division, right? It highlights more of the so-called the so-called left-right so-called paradigm that they have, right? Instead of people coming together and saying, oh my God, like one of our people just got taken out. He was an American, right? He was an American who got gunned down in public, giving a speech, right? It's like, you could tie this thing into so many different things, man. You know, not only was he a so-called white man, okay, in America, he was exercising his freedom of speech. That's another thing you could tie into this. And he was affected by that, right? Another thing they could also attack would be public speaking, right? So now people gonna be like, oh, I'm afraid to go do public speaking. You know, the government might say, oh, these are the new things that we got to do in order to keep people safe if you're out there in the public, right? Remember, this is not, the reason why this is so crazy is because a president, right? The chances of a president being so-called unalived, people kind of accept that because it's something that could possibly happen. But this right here, a civilian to get popped in front of everyone like that, it sends a different type of message. And that's exactly what they want, right? This is more like this generation's JFK, right? They saw it on TV like, oh my God, like, yo, that's the point. Hey, I'm busy. Come on now. You know, this is like that kind of shit. Again, they have to do something that's so traumatic that everything else that comes out of it, right, will be justified. It'll make more sense, you know? So expect a lot more of these kinds of situations to happen. Maybe the next one might be a so-called Democrat that gets taken out, you know, a lot more in a more violent manner. And then they retaliate back and forth. Next thing you know, it's like, yo, this has to stop. Gun violence has to stop. This mental illness has to stop, you know? And people are going to put their hands in the upper and demand the federal government to do something. Okay. But it says here, continuing back in the article, it says, for days after his death, social media was littered with mocking posts, celebrations, and even open cheering that a man was gunned down for his political beliefs, right? And that's America for you. Okay, the true nature of these Americans is showing, right? In a time of crisis, who they really are shows, right? When you go back in 2020, it highlighted that Americans are actually weak, all right? And all they have to do, and I say they, I'm talking about these elites, all they have to do is present you with a crisis, and people will just follow whatever the so-called experts and scientists say. So they don't have a backbone. They're not going to rise up and so-called protest anything. They've already done it. They showed you, listen, we can lock you into your homes and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're just going to comply. We could tell you, yo, you got to come take this jump shot or else you can't eat. You can't feed your family. You can't do shit. You're going to comply. So they've already tested that stage. Are the people going to uprise if we oppress them? No. All right, cool. Let's move on to the next step. All right. So the next step is what they're working on right now. That's why Trump is making sure that the military is in position, because they might need that kind of force to push over the hump. Okay. It says the mask slipped. Okay. The mask slipped and millions of Americans, left, right, and undecided, saw what modern progressivism has become when the facade of, quote, tolerance was stripped away. Okay. Modern progressivism, that's all nothing but this whole concept of rebellion. Okay, modern progressivism is nothing but rebellion against, all right, biblical norms, all right, heavenly order. Okay, basically everything that the Bible teaches progressivism, modern progressivism pushes against that. Okay, it enables this whole TG idea, right? It enables this whole do what thou wilt spirit. It enables this whole, you don't need God, you need science type of shit. You know what I mean? That's what you're seeing now. Okay, and this is all part of the Lord is showing you. This is why this doesn't work. This is why America has to be destroyed, and then He's going to go ahead and destroy it on top of that, right? So I'm going to skip around in this article here because it's quite lengthy. Another thing that they could still push is the concept of going against, the faith, right? The guy was a so-called Christian man, right? Wasn't he a Christian man? Yeah, he followed the Christian values, right? He believed in Jesus Christ, he was, he had his family, like a nuclear family, he had a wife, he had a daughter, right? He wasn't a sodomite, that kind of shit. So he was more like a traditional so-called white man, a Christian man, so to speak. And the traditional so-called Christian man was gunned down because of his beliefs, political beliefs. He's a Christian man. What business does he have to do with politics, right? But again, they're blending all these things in. And I mentioned this a couple of months ago that very soon you're going to see Christians protest for political rights as well, because that's what we're living in now. Being a Christian is a political Christian. You're not a biblical Christian anymore. Okay, so it's another thing that they've done, all right, to tie in, or blur the lines between Christianity and politics, right, or religion and politics, right? So this guy believes in what they call Christ and so on and so forth. He comes up, he speaks his biblical point of view, and that garners somebody to despise him so much that they took his life. So that's a narrative that they can push. And then, interestingly, I think a couple of weeks ago, Trump said that he has to. What did he say? Anti-Christian bias or something like that he used. It was a phrase that he used. Right? They try to do away with anti-Christian bias for so long. It's something that's been happening, but they never addressed. And then this happens. Right? So you can expect a lot more of these things to happen. It's all problem, reaction, solution. All right. So continuing, it says, Charlie Kirk built his movement on a simple but profound idea that open debate, free speech, and honest exchange of ideas are the lifeblood of a healthy democracy. He believed young people deserve to be challenged, not coddled. He believed conservative values could compete in the marketplace of ideas and win. Okay, his critics loathed him for it. You see, so you could tie that into, if the critics loathe him for basic understanding of life principles, right? The basic things that you should do to prolong your society, keep it in order, right? People loathe him for that. What do you think they're going to feel about the men of the Lord that preach the truth, unfiltered and raw? You see, because at the end of the day, he can say whatever he has to say, with Charlie Kirk, that is, but it's all based on the worldview of Christianity, not the biblical view. So if the worldview Christianity is being looked at as crazy and causing people to get put to death, well, this is what the world produces. They should be okay with it. How much more something like the truth that is outside of this, the understanding of this world? You see, so we're getting ready to be persecuted on a whole nother level. I'm talking about like they're gonna set the stage where both Democrats and Republicans come full flesh, full force against the truth, man. All right. So we could see it coming. All right. It says here, his critics loathed him for it, not because he silenced them, but because he exposed them. And now, as people look at the celebration of his murder, they are forced to ask themselves, do I want to be associated with this? Do I want to stand with a side that treats death as a joke? The stark choice could not be clearer. You either embrace a movement rooted in free expression and respect for life, or you align with one that cheers when its opponents are gunned down. That moral fork in the road has never been more obvious. Okay, and like I said, this generation doesn't care about none of that. They don't understand the concept of, moral codes. They don't get that. They weren't taught that. All right, their generation kind of start to lean towards the do what thou wilt spirit, but on a whole nother level. Okay, so this generation has no idea when it comes to faith or, courage or, love for your country and, those kind of things. Those things that Charlie Kirk was Kirk was, I guess pushing on these college students. That's what made the debates happen. They didn't understand why he was so, he was saying using common sense shit to beat them on whatever they believed in. Okay. Let's see. Right. So it says, Charlie Kirk's death was a tragedy, but it was not the end. It was a turning point. You hear that? Even in death, he is drawing a line that Americans must confront. Life or death, debate or hatred, courage or cruelty. The fact that people are rethinking their alliances, questioning their values, and rallying to this cause is proof that his influence is not even over. If anything, it only begun. Right? So expect to see a whole lot more of this type of division, right? Liberals versus, conservatives, and gay versus straight, and men versus women, and old versus young. And this is what this creates. Christians versus Muslims, right? Because there was a speech where he made that said something about Muslims have created some crazy shit that he said, right? So you could add the Muslims into the mix as well. All right, so this is all being done by design. Okay, this is all being done by design. And I believe we're going to see a whole lot more that comes out of this that will lead into the bio-digital convergence, all right, which is man and machine being mixed. All right, you can expect to see them come up with all kinds of different technology to so-called save the day, right? They're going to come up with technology like facial recognition tech and so on and so forth. Or we had to use this technology to solve the crime, and this is why we need pre-crime technology, because that can stop people from, garnering hate and getting ideas and, acting upon them and so on and so forth, right? Yeah, so get ready for more propaganda, right? What we call prime reaction solution, agitprop, right? And remember what Albert Pike also said, that they shall release the nihilists. Okay, the nihilists are going to be, unleashed, all right? And he said, what did he say? It's going to be a bloody savagery like never before, right? So get ready, man. Get ready. This devil is being exposed and he's being desperate. So he's going to come up with a whole lot of shit, a lot of tricks, all right? A lot of tricks up their sleeve that they're going to be unraveling in the next coming days and weeks, all right? As the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11, it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, and his devices go into his evil schemes. All right, prime reaction solution is one of them. Okay, predictive programming is one of them. Agitation propaganda is one of them. Okay, creating and fomenting all these divisions and so on and so forth, psyop after psyop, is all part of those schemes. Okay, so you're going to see a lot more. All right, but remember, they're going to be targeting a lot of groups. They're going to be targeting, all right, a lot of ideologies, right? They're going to be demonizing a lot of, concepts, all right? And there's going to be a lot of confusion. Every day is going to be something new to worry about. All right, it's all going to be on the road to justifying why we should be in a police state, martial law, and so on and so forth. Okay, the so-called digital panopticon, if you will. All right. So anyway, I'm going to leave it up there. Lord willing, you're edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Bracha Kodesh, the water Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, and until next time, Shalom.
We have 33 confirmed positive tests.
We have 33 Pennsylvanians who have tested positive for
COVID-19.
Today we have 33 cases.
There were 33 new cases.
The state of Minnesota today reported 33 new COVID-19 related deaths.
There are 33 confirmed cases in Arkansas.
That's the largest single-day increase so far, raising the total to 33.
33.
There were 33 confirmed cases in North Carolina.
33.
There was 33 everywhere.
Yes.
I think that was Red Team Go. I think 33 is like Red Team Go. Everybody goes, okay, let's do it. It's time.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, there's like literally 1,033 and 33 new cases. 33 people died in fucking Hong Kong.
The number 33, we all know what that represents.